I recently surveyed the 60 agents on my real estate sales team, as well as my entire audience of real estate agents. And these are the top 10 struggles that we found real estate agents are facing. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down what the struggle is, and then I'm going to go through and give my personal advice of how I would overcome those struggles. So if you are connecting with any of these different struggles, this is my personal advice. I also have a bonus at the end on number 10, so make sure you stick around for that. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Christian Stubbs. I'm a team leader and owner of Onyx Homes, which is a real estate sales team based in Southern California. Like I said, we have about 60 agents on our team. And just in the last 4.5 years, we've sold over 600 units for over $500 million in sales, which is really cool to say. We just crossed over that $500 million mark. And before I dive into the actual list, I want to make a point that there was really no particular order of this. This isn't number 1 most common, number 10 least common concern or issue, obstacle that agents are facing. These are in no particular order. So I'm going to go ahead and start with number 1, which is agents are struggling with staying focused, motivated, and struggling with their mindset. Now, if we sat down and had a one-on-one conversation about this, the very first thing that I'm going to ask you is, why in the world are you in the business in the first place? This real estate business is way too hard of a business for you to do it just because you fell into it, or it just kind of was something that sounded like fun. If you are looking to be a successful real estate agent and you don't have a real true passion, I'm not saying a passion for real estate or architecture. I'm talking about a passion to build something special for your life. This is a business where you can make 6 figures, you can make 60,000, or you can make $6 million. And you can do that at any level of the business, meaning as an individual agent, as a team leader, or whatever. So my first question to anybody that asks me this is, why are you in the business? Why did you choose such a hard business with no ceiling to get into? Now, if you're struggling with your mindset, honestly, starting with why you're in the business first helps with your mindset. There's plenty of days that I go to work, today filming this was one of them, where I did not want to get in front of the camera and film for the first 5 or 6 hours of my day, but my vision for my life and my business is way more important than me not feeling like I want to film this video. So that's what helps me with mindset. Frankly, also taking care of yourself will help you with your mindset as well too. Now, as far as staying motivated, if your why is big enough, your motivation will be there. And frankly, if your why isn't there and you don't know why you're in this business in the first place, and you're struggling to find the will to work, maybe it's not the right business for you. But as far as setting up habits and a strong foundation, your calendar is the magic pill. This is something that if you know what's important for your business, you put it in your calendar, and when it hits 10 o'clock and it's time to start filming videos, that's what you do. If it's 8:30 in the morning and you need to hop on role play with your team or your brokerage, that's what you do. And if it's not important, you won't do it. So making sure that what is in your calendar is the most important thing. Pro tip here, I have to adjust my calendar about every 3 to 6 months to make sure it's still in line with what's most important. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2 is agents struggle by getting ghosted by their customers. Now, the number 1 reason you are getting ghosted by your customers is because you are not setting next steps the last time you talk to them. If you're sitting here and wondering, gosh, I've called this person for the last 4 or 5 months and they just haven't responded, I'm getting ghosted, that isn't the problem. The last 4 months of your touch points, that isn't the problem. It was the last touch point you had with them. You did not set crystal clear next steps. Now, as a plug, I talk about this at length in our Start to Finish in Real Estate free community. If you want to join that and get the free training on it, go to onyxhomes.com/school. We'll have the link in the description as well too. Join in there. I have tons of training that won't cover all of it, but here is next steps on a very, very short basis. So let's say you are meeting with the buyer, you set up an appointment and you're meeting them at a house tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Well, when tomorrow at 3 o'clock rolls around and you finish up your tour, you need to set exactly what's going to happen next. Ideally, if you're working in our system, you are setting up a buyer strategy session and they know that they're going to show up tomorrow at 6 o'clock to do a 45-minute to 2-hour consultation. They need to be at their computer and they know exactly what's going to happen. So that's my number 1 thing, is if you're not setting next steps, that's going to lead to you getting ghosted. Now, when you do set next steps, here's something you're going to find out. You're going to start hearing more objections than you're used to. And it's not because you aren't good at explaining what your next steps are, that might be part of it, but it's because they are actually just saying, no, we don't want to work with you, as opposed to ghosting you. So you're finding out at the last appointment if you're going to get ghosted again. And this is how I do this. Again, this is all laid out in the start to finish community if you want to join onyxhomes.com/school. But here's a breakdown. I'm going to start, if you're a buyer and I'm at that house with you, I'm going to start, well, here's what I do for all my clients who are in your position. We do this thing we call a home buyer strategy session where we cover bang, 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 bullet points. So I won't go through the whole script, or this video is going to be 3 hours long. So if they say, no, Christian, I don't think I'm quite ready for that yet, I'm going to say, okay, I'll come back to that again in the future because it's important, but how about we do this instead? Why don't we cast a wide net for your home search? We'll pick 2 or 3, and since you're not ready, we're not looking for the perfect house. We're just looking to narrow it down so it's easier when you are ready. And we can go look at a few of those this weekend. Does that sound good? No, Christian, we're good. We're not really ready to go look at more properties. Okay. Then you're going to move to the least valuable thing, and I'm going to say, well, how about this? I'll keep you updated on what's going on with the market. I'll send you a monthly market update every single month. And then I'll keep you updated what's going on with the homes for sale. I'll keep sending those to you every day or every week. And then if I don't hear from you in the next month or so, would it be okay if I gave you a call? And if they say, no, it's okay, we'll call you, that is them telling you that you are getting ghosted. Most agents will not walk through and ask for 3 different solutions to the problem before. And here's a pro tip, and I hope that hits home, is most agents will not do that. And that is one of the major reasons why I was able to sell like I was, is I'm not asking once if somebody wants to take the next step. I'm going to start at the most valuable thing and appeal back to the least valuable thing, but I am absolutely not leaving this appointment without a commitment. And if they won't commit to anything, that is them telling me, Christian, we just don't want to work with you. And they don't always say that, but you'll know if they tell you enough times no in a row. All right, that's number 2, which is fixing you getting ghosted. Now, number 3, most common struggle is that real estate agents don't know what to do with cold calling. Now, here's my personal advice. I cold called for about 30 minutes when I first started the business, and I did not enjoy it, so I stopped and I tried something else. We'll get to that later. But for cold calling, if I was to jump into the business, this is the advice I give to our agents who are cold calling and having success with it. Is first of all, pick who you're calling and why are you calling them. Do not just take cold calling as a whole and think that you need to do all of it. In my experience, there's 2 different types of cold callers. There's expireds and for sale by owners, and then there is circle prospect. So expireds and for sale by owners are pretty straightforward. You are calling people who have listed their home for sale and they had a problem selling it, and you're calling them to try to list their home. You, along with 50 other agents in your marketplace. Not my favorite thing in the world, but it is incredibly effective. I know a lot of friends that make a lot of money. There are very clear scripts. I'm not going to pretend like I'm the expert, so I'm not going to talk about that. What I will talk about is how important your consistency is. The guys that I know that make $1 million a year doing this are on the phone at 8 a.m. every single day. They're on role play at 7 o'clock every single day. And they're on the phone from 8 to 11. They're on the phone again from 3 to 6 every single day. They're making thousands and thousands and thousands of dials. You would not believe how many agents I've heard say they're struggling with calling for sale by owners and expireds, and they never role play, and they call for 30 minutes and quit. That's never going to work with any lead source. But that's my advice for cold calling expireds and for sale by owners. Now, the second part of that is circle prospecting. This is something that's a little bit easier. You have a less direct reason for calling them. And this is calling around a neighborhood saying, hey, Bob, did you see what happened with your neighbor? Your neighbor just listed their home. Your neighbor just put their home in contract. Your neighbor just sold their property. Did you see what it sold for? Or, hey, calling the neighborhood, and you're going to say, hey, I'm hosting an open house. Do you want to stop by? I think everybody can do this next one. So this next one is if you are, hopefully you have leads, and if you're not on a team, you go to somebody else that has buyers ready to buy in a neighborhood. Ideally, they have an exclusive buyer agreement signed and they're already pre-approved, or if they're paying cash, we know that they have proof of funds. You can take that buyer, you can call around a neighborhood, and it doesn't have to be your buyer. Ideally it is, and you just do this for all of your buyers, and it's a huge value add because you're calling and saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, my name is Christian Stubbs. I have a buyer that loves your neighborhood, and I'm just calling to find out if you know of any of your neighbors that might consider selling off market. And then they might consider selling off market. And then you have a couple different offers you can provide to them. You can give them a cash offer in one day. You can do a walkthrough, talk about what it might look like if they were to sell the house. You can give them a CMA. There's a lot of different things there. But overall, that is cold calling. You've got those 3 real different chunks. And my advice is practice, 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 and reps are massive in that space. All right, that's cold calling. Now let's move on to number 4, which is getting buyer agreements signed from your clients. More important now than ever, and this is something that we have done an incredible job. Just in the last month, we had 40 exclusive buyer agreements signed all at our full fee in just the last month. So number 1, first and foremost, is your sales process is going to be heavily dependent, or I should say your success on getting buyer agreements signed is going to be heavily dependent upon your sales process. So what we have done with our team, and again, in the Start to Finish in Real Estate community, there is a full training, not only on the actual buyer strategy session that we do ourselves, the full 45-minute to an hour and a half presentation, as well as the entire slide deck and the document we use for our buyer agreement. That's all in there. But we also have the sales process to get you teed up to doing buyer strategy sessions. So that's all in the community, onyxhomes.com/school. But here is the reality, is we treat our buyer sales process just as serious as we treat our listing process. You would never have anybody call you and say, hey Christian, we want to sell our house. I would never respond with, cool, I'll send over a contract and then we can get started. No, not at all. I would say, hey, when is a good time for me to come over and go through our listing presentation so we can talk about what it looks like to sell your home? And that is how people are handling buyers right now. It's crazy, is they're saying, hey, you want to buy a house? Cool, you have to sign a contract with me. And there's zero value exchanged up until the point of a signed contract. And I think that's nonsense. You have to provide a tremendous amount of value before getting your agreement signed. And we do that with our sales process. And I call it 4 different points. Number 1 is you have to become best friends, meaning you are going to try to do everything you can to meet more of the appointments that you set. We do this with a free touring agreement for buyers. We want to just go meet them at the house, and then we can walk through the second point, which is winning at the job interview, where we follow our closer framework to clarify why they're looking to move in the first place, label their pain point, overview what they've done so far, and sell our solution to their problem, and then explain and review everything. Again, in the school community, there's a ton of different information on our entire sales process. This closer framework is what I use for all types of sales, for the record as well too. Number 3 is turn leads into clients with a buyer strategy session where you're going to go through a true value add consultation. I will not go through the whole thing, there's not nearly enough time. And the last thing is set crystal clear next steps, which we've already talked about. So this is our sales process. This works incredibly well. I have experienced agents that plugged into the system and automatically started getting more buyer agreements signed. And we have brand new agents that are brand new to the business that are getting buyer agreements signed at a full fee within the first couple of weeks in the business. So it definitely works. All right, now 5 and 6 are really tied together. So I'm going to talk about them both at the same time. And it is lead generation and picking your pillars of business. So I'm going to talk about them in that order of lead generation first and then pillars of business second. But these really are together. But let me walk through first. Is for lead generation is you really only need to be good at 1 or 2 things. I mentioned earlier with cold calling, expireds, and for sale by owners. I have friends that make $1 million a year, and that is literally all they do. They don't even hardly do open houses for their own listings because they are so focused on what they do well is the expireds and for sale by owners. I know the same thing for door knocking, the same thing for events, and so on and so on. So for lead generation, the biggest problem I see most agents facing is they're trying to solve, or they're trying to do 10 different things at once as opposed to picking one. Now, if you are a newer agent to the business, my advice is, this goes into number 6, is try as many different pillars of business as you want. I mentioned earlier, I tried cold calling for 30 minutes and I hated it, so I stopped and I did something else. I also door knocked. I knocked on 3 doors. I was in an old lady's house for 45 minutes and I just could not get out, and I hated every second of it, so I never knocked on doors again. But I found open houses, and that was really what I fell in love with. And then I found direct mail, which worked for me as well too early in my career, until I really found paid advertising. And that is what really changed my life, was between open houses and paid advertising. I was able to make over $1 million in my first 2 years in the business. And as far as pillars of business, pick 1 or 2 maximum. I have a video where I talked about my schedule, but for the first really almost 8 months in the business, all I did was open houses. I did Friday, Saturday, Sunday open houses. and I put out tons of sign. I did those at a really high level. We have videos on all of that in our channel as well too. But I did not add a second pillar of business, frankly, until I had to. And I would give that advice to every single person. Now, lead generation in general is all about consistency and doing things at a high level. Alex Hormozi talks a lot about this rule of 100. Think of it like this, is every single day you need to be making 100 phone calls, sending 100 emails, sending 100 DMs, door knocking on 100 doors, making 100 minutes of content, so on and so on, to where if you're not doing 100 things every single day, you're not really doing much. And honestly, when I see real estate agents that are struggling with lead generation, it's usually an effort problem way more than it is a skill problem. Most agents just aren't putting in nearly enough volume of work in order to get the output that they actually need. For example, if you're generating 1 lead a week, you're generating 52 leads a year, versus an agent that is doing 5 or 6 leads a week is going to be doing 5 or 6 times more lead generation, and they're probably going to convert way better. They're getting way more reps all the way around, and this is something that is true for every aspect of any business, but especially in sales. All right, so that's 5 and 6 talking about lead generation and picking your pillars. So now let's talk about number 7, which is connecting with leads on a personal level. It's going to be a very controversial hot take, but here it is. You do not need to connect with everybody on a personal level. Now, if you want to be the real estate agent that people only work with you because they think you're fun and they're friendly and all that fun stuff, then yeah, you're going to have to be on a really friendly level on a relationship with every single lead. I can tell you, I did very well in sales in my business, and nobody used me because they thought I was fun and they wanted to hang out. They used me because they knew that I knew what I was doing. I was working harder than anybody else that they've worked with. I absolutely was going to make sure I negotiated the best deal possible, and they felt confident that I was going to do what I said I was going to do. That's why people worked with me. They felt confident working with me, not because they had a real relationship with me. Now, here is the pro tip on that, is your best clients who are going to refer you business forever. Those are the people that I built relationships with, and I still do to this day, 4 and 5 years later, and they still refer me business, and I'm probably going to be their realtor for life. But I don't feel like I have to do that with every single person. At the end of the day, you are a salesperson. When you call somebody and they pick up the phone and they see your name, they know you're a salesperson. You don't have to remind them, but you also don't want to pretend like you're not a salesperson. This is something that I don't know why more people don't talk about, but it really bothers me in real estate right now, is everybody thinks, oh, we have to be friends, we have to give gifts and all this stuff. It's like, you're a professional service and somebody paying you a lot of money for you to do their job. They should work with you because you're good at your job more than you're giving them gifts. That's my personal opinion on this, but you should be building relationships with your nurture clients and your your past clients. Those are the people you should really be focusing on actually building a relationship with, the people who are going to refer you business in the future. By the way, if you like this type of content and you're newer to the channel, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to us. You have no idea how far it actually goes. And drop a comment for the next type of video you want to see me make. All right, let me dive into number 8, which is dealing with other agents. Now, this was an interesting one when I heard it. Here's the biggest piece of advice that I can give, is realize that when you're talking to another agent, you are either in a negotiation or you're taking time away from them. So if somebody gives me a call, doesn't leave me a voicemail, doesn't text me what they're calling about, there is almost a 0% chance I'm calling them back, because it really couldn't have been that important. Now, if they call me 5 or 6 more times and they keep calling me at times that don't work for me, I'm still not going to respond, and I'm going to think that person's annoying. Now, for successful agents, their time is probably the most valuable thing. They're probably on the phone all day long making money. And if you're an agent that is annoying, calling too much, not being clear, direct, whatever it might be, that's something that's really going to hurt your reputation in the business, especially with that agent. Now, the other thing, as I mentioned, is you are always in a negotiation with an agent. I say this to my team all the time, is your negotiation, if you're representing a buyer and you're going to write an offer on a property, your negotiation started when you called them to schedule the tour. If you were a pain in the ass scheduling the tour for your client, there's a really big chance that they're going to think you are a pain in the ass through the entire process. So make sure that you realize every conversation you have is either a negotiation or you're taking time away from that agent to build their business and make more money. And I think when you understand that those two things are happening, you'll probably have different conversations with other agents. All right, number 9 is going to talk about technology. Now, I'll preface this by giving 2 different categories here. If you're brand new to the business and you're making less than 6 figures, or frankly, anybody making less than 6 figures, you should be on a team. Obviously I'm biased, but you should join the best team in your marketplace, and they will pay for way more than you could ever pay for. That's just the reality of it. Our tech stack costs $60,000 a month just to have what we have. Maybe not 60, it's probably like 40. So nobody's going to spend that on their own. So if you join a team, you get all that access. That's my number 1 piece of advice. So you shouldn't spend very much money at all, but you have to use the stuff you have. So if you're at a brokerage and you're not on a team, they don't make you use the CRM, use the CRM. Now, if you want to go and have your own, which I don't think is a bad idea unless you're on a team, Follow Up Boss is absolutely the best CRM. And that is the most important thing. If you want to attach a cheap website to it with an IDX, I think you should as well. But again, if you're making less than 6 figures, do not spend money on this. Use what the brokerage and team provides. All right, let's move over here. So I hope you get this. If you are experienced, CRM is absolutely the most important thing. If you are using your cell phone to keep track of everything, you are absolutely missing deals. I'll give you a quick story here. So I was talking to an agent that was struggling using her CRM, and I asked why she wasn't using it. And she says, just easier to use my phone and I don't miss anything. You don't miss anything. Let's see your phone. And we looked at her phone and she had over 1,000 unread text messages. iPhone, text messages, 1,000, and like 50,000 unread emails. And I just asked a simple question. Do you seriously think there isn't a deal in those 1,000 text messages you haven't clicked on to respond to? Of course there is. Not to mention the 40,000 emails. It blows me away. So anyway, this is what your CRM is for, is to keep your life organized for business. You can have your personal life unorganized, not recommended either, but this is for business. All right, experienced agents. Here's my tech stack that is required if you're solo or building a team. Follow Up Boss is the best CRM, period. And I'm not saying that only because I use it. I use it because I looked at everything and it is the best. Number 2 is you have to have an IDX and a website. This matters much less than the CRM does. You could use Sierra, Ylopo, Agent Fire with an IDX on it, luxury presence, it really doesn't matter. They're all pretty much the same. None of them are that great. The CRM is important, which is Follow Up Boss. Number 3 is you need to have a seller lead gen. Fellow is something we use now. It is way better than HomeBot. HomeBot is okay if you can afford Fellow. It's like $1,000 a month for our database size. Absolutely recommend it. And then you should have BombBomb, and if you can't afford BombBomb, get Loom. And the last thing is like G Suite. And the thing that I'm not going to include in here, well, I will, is you should have CTE, like $35 a month, and it's going to track all of your deals and all your money so you know exactly what's going on. Do not count on your brokerage if you're running a team to take care or track everything for you. All they care about the money is hitting their account. They do not care about every line item, and you're going to want to know this information in the future. So that's Follow Up Boss is your CRM, whatever website, IDX, Fellow or HomeBot, ideally Fellow, BombBomb or Loom, ideally BombBomb, CTE, G Suite or Outlook or whatever, and something to track all of your stuff. Something to track your calls, text, emails, appointments, consults, all those things so you know how to track and measure. That's what your tech is for. Another big thing is do not over tech. This is something in the past that I've been super guilty of. I see a shiny penny, I sign up for something, pay $1,000 a month or $1,000 a year, never use it or use it once. I spent way too much money on tech that I never used, so I'm very hesitant to bring on new tech nowadays. And if I were to start over and build a team from scratch, that's the tech stack that I would use. All right, number 10, this is also the bonus. This is building brand. I love that this was a top 10 struggle for real estate agents because it was something I struggled a ton with. So at the end of this chunk of building brand, I'll give you how I personally did it as well too. So number 1 is this is something that you choose to do. This is something I wish I would have chosen to do from day 1. I waited about 2 years into the business before I really committed to actually making content. And fast forward 3 years later, I am so glad I started when I did. I just wish I would have started sooner. Also, here's my advice when you do start is know what you're trying to build. Who is your audience? Who are you trying to attract? And build content that they want. Now, coming from there, start building your library of resources today. Like today, pull up your iPhone, put it on a cheap tripod, press record, and start talking about valuable stuff for your customers. If you don't know what to talk about, take a notepad, put it next to you, or use your phone or whatever you want. And every single time you hear an objection, you hear a question from any of your consumers, write that down, and that's your piece of content. If you're talking to enough people out in the marketplace, you're absolutely gonna have enough content to make. And huge pro tip here, your brand is not a logo, it's not a color, it is not the font that you use. Your brand as you. You are your personal brand, you are the business. So you need to make sure that you are being you. This is something, again, when I first started, I had a videographer that I was paying to do this, and he wanted me to be an influencer. I am not an influencer. I'm not gonna be doing TikTok and all the stuff. The second I said, you know what, I'm just gonna talk about something that I'm passionate about, he looked at me from behind the camera, he's like, that's what you need to sound like every single time. And that is my advice to you, is just be you. The second I turned that crap off and I just started being myself on camera, it was 1,000 times easier for me, and I'm gonna attract the people that like that, they like me. And I'm gonna detract people that don't like me. If you don't like cursing in a video every once in a while, you might not wanna watch this channel. But anyway, that is my advice, is number one, start now, like today. Number two, you do not need to spend a ton of money on video content. Number three is know what you want to build in the future and then start building towards that. Make the content for the person you want to attract and then start. And it's not about branding. It's not branding, meaning it's not about colors, fonts, logos, and all that crap. It is about you and who you are. You're building your personal brand as a real estate agent. All right, this is the bonus. If you want to learn about how I personally got into starting this, I did this through my email newsletter. I had a huge database of leads, about 10,000 leads that I wanted to make sure I was staying in front of. So we started our email newsletter and we send an email every single Friday. Just in the last 90 days, I have sent 234,000 emails with over a 43% open rate and over a 1.5% click rate. And I get responses of people that want to do business with us every single week. So if you want to learn about how to start your newsletter and start building your personal brand, click this next video and I'll see you in that one. Again, thanks for watching. I appreciate it.